Today, we hope you have a great evening, and tomorrow, oh, you're just going to love it.
On World News Tonight, this Wednesday, passengers' rights.
As airlines become bigger and bigger, they respect their passengers less and less.
The government would like to do something about it. Devastating times in America's oil fields. The price so low, you might as well cap the well. The police departments with time on their hands. Time to look again at unsolved murders. And the Japanese pearl industry, something terrible is happening.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. To put the headline on it, we're going to begin tonight with 9,600 complaints from unhappy passengers. That is how many formal complaints there were last year to the Department of Transportation alone about the state of the nation's airlines. And so today, there was a lot of interest when the House of Representatives made a well-publicized effort to get on the passenger side. ABC's Linda Douglas starts us off on Capitol Hill.
The horror stories are familiar to anyone who flies. Flights canceled with no explanation. Hours spent trapped in the terminal or on the plane. Lost luggage, rude treatment. Enraged passengers are demanding new legal rights, and Congress is now rushing to grant them.
The airline business has become a rather jaded, bottom-line, pack-em-in like sardines industry.
Today, a House panel listened as several witnesses relived their nightmarish experiences. Northwest Airlines passenger Barbara Plakas told how she and others were forced to sit in a plane for 7 hours while crews dug out of a snowstorm in Detroit. On board, there was no food, no water, and then it got worse.
At about the 5th hour on the plane, the tanks from the lavatories began to overflow, making them unusable.
Plakas said when one passenger demanded to get off, he was threatened with arrest. Patricia Shank described how she was a virtual prisoner on a Virgin Airlines jet, which was waiting to be de-iced.
During the 9 hours that we were forced to wait, we were repeatedly remanded to our seats if we tried to stand up.
Republicans are pushing their version of an airline passenger Bill of Rights, which would force airlines to pay anyone kept waiting on a runway more than 2 hours, twice the price of his ticket. 3 hours, 3 times the price, and so on. Not to be outdone, the administration trotted out its own plan today, which would force airlines to pay handsomely for bumping passengers from flights and for losing luggage. Though Republicans usually oppose new regulations, they are likely to pass some of these. In part, that's because they are frequent flyers, and some of the horror stories that make them angriest are their own. Linda Douglas, ABC News, Reagan National Airport.
They should be thankful they don't live in Rochester, New York, or quite a number of other places in the country where the airline service is, to say the least, thin, not to mention very expensive. The government's General Accounting Office calls them pockets of pain. Here's ABC's Betsy Stark.
Rochester, New York is best known for its big companies, Eastman Kodak, Xerox, Bausch & Lomb, and increasingly for its small high-technology companies. But Rochester has another distinction, one that threatens its dynamic business community. Some of the highest airfares in the country.
We spend about $1 million to $1.5 million a year on airfare, and that's about equal to our profits for a year.
The lowest fare is going to be $9.98.
To avoid high travel costs, LPA Software says it will expand not in Rochester, but Dallas. Budget-busting fares also hurt Ameritherm, a maker of precision heating equipment. Girish Dahaki's recent trip to San Jose cost an eye-popping $1,855. Did you have your choice of airlines?
Not really, because all airlines were the same cost, so there was no choice.
Unless he'd driven 5 hours to Cleveland. From there, low-cost Southwest Airlines makes the trip for just $750.
The airlines have an unfair, competitive situation in Rochester, and are taking advantage of it.
Rochester is one of dozens of cities where lack of competition has driven airfares sky high. The problem is worst on short flights, especially where there is no low-cost airline. Fares in those cities have risen 23% over the last 20 years, while fares in cities with a low-cost competitor have decreased 41%. So why aren't more low-cost carriers moving into cities like Rochester, which would clearly welcome some price competition? Well, over the past few years, several startups have tried to break into markets dominated by the big airlines, but few have succeeded.
This is a completely non-smoking flight, and this is also a small aircraft.
Tiny Spirit Airlines tried to break Northwest's chokehold on Detroit by offering one flight a day to Boston for $69. Northwest then offered that same low price on 11 flights a day. Spirit says that forced them out, and once they were gone, Northwest more than doubled its fares to Boston. Northwest says it acted as any competitor would, but the Department of Transportation now wants stricter rules to protect low-cost carriers. In the meantime, Rochester is looking for its own solution. Local business owners are talking about flying charters to Baltimore, where they can get inexpensive service. It's a long way to travel for a cheap fare, but for now, it's the best they can do. Betsy Stark, ABC News, Rochester.
One of the items about airports. ABC News has confirmed that undercover federal agents have discovered serious security breaches at several mid-sized U.S. airports. People are getting through supposedly secure doors and in some cases getting on planes unchallenged. As a result of this, the Federal Aviation Administration is stepping up its scrutiny for the next few weeks, and we'll have more to report. Overseas, in Yugoslavia tonight, the U.S. envoy Richard Holbrooke had no good news to report about possible peace for Kosovo after talking to the Yugoslav president Slobodan Milosevic. In Belgrade, Holbrooke had tried to convince the Yugoslav leader to accept a NATO peace force for Kosovo. He did not succeed. No go. In Kosovo today, Mr. Milosevic's Serb forces exchanged heavy fire with ethnic Albanian troops. In a year of fighting, 2,000 people have now been killed in Kosovo. And ABC's Mike Lee reports tonight that every story is a family story.
The children of the Corti family stayed at home when their mother and father went to a nearby town to look for food. Hisan and Sanja Corti, a typical ethnic Albanian peasant couple, married young, working hard, raising a large family. They told friends that the peace talks were going to make their village safer, that the children would go back to school, that they would go back to tending their crops and cattle. But on their way to town, Hisan and Sanja were killed. They and 3 neighbors shot dead by Serb security forces who claimed they appeared to be Albanian terrorists. Most of the village turned out for the funeral. Now, like so many others in Kosovo, the 6 children are orphans. Their aunt, Husseini, says she's trying to take care of them. But, she says, I can never replace their mother. I feel so sad for all of us. 12-year-old Besnik is suddenly a father to his brothers and sisters. I'm doing the best I can, he says, but without my mother and father, I feel lost. Besnik is not even old enough to have a man's voice, and he can barely reach the pedals on his father's tractor. But now he talks about trying to fill his father's shoes and about fears that the Serbs who killed his parents will come and kill all the children, too. Mike Lee, ABC News, Srnja, Kosovo.
When we come back, we'll go on to the other news, shutting down the wells, hard times on the oil patch. And what is happening to the oysters, Japan's pearl industry, in trouble.
This is not like any other antacid I've ever had.
You won't believe your mouth.
It dissolves in your mouth. It's just like, shabam.
Introducing Maalox Quick Dissolve Chewables, a whole new kind of calcium antacid for heartburn.
Dissolves immediately, swallow, done.
Boom.
New Maalox Quick Dissolve Chewables dissolve faster and more completely than Tums.
It's not gritty. It's not pieces. Goodbye, grit.
New Maalox Quick Dissolve Chewable Tablets. Quick dissolve your heartburn away.
I'm a happy man.
From 1 Minute Maalox.
New individually wrapped all-days panty liners. Tastefully toteable. New individually wrapped all-days panty liners. Remarkably mobile.
A
neglected septic system is like a time bomb under your house. Diffuse it with maintenance and advanced formula Rid-X septic treatment. It digests grease and paper and helps keep your system trouble-free. Diffuse that time bomb. Use Rid-X every month.
Finally, intelligent life in auto insurance. Be progressive. Call 1-800-AUTO-PRO for savings that are out of this world. And remember, buckle up.
We're gonna change your mind about coloring your gray with the natural look of Just for Men.
You look so natural, no one can tell with Just for Men. No one can tell with Just for Men.
Just for Men penetrates hair deep inside where natural color begins. Simply apply, and in 5 minutes, rinse. Gray is gone, matched up to the rest of your hair.
You look so natural, no one can tell with Just for Men.
On the money tonight, the Dow Jones Industrial Average closed at a record high today. The Dow was up 79 points to close at 97.72, inching towards 10,000. On the NASDAQ, stocks were up 13 points. Microsoft is trying to establish a bigger presence in China. They have struck a deal today to provide internet access and sell products to the Chinese through specially designed television sets. Fewer than 1% of the Chinese currently have any internet access. Just one item about taxes. The Canadian bicycle messenger who sued the government because the tax department would not let him deduct his food as fuel has won. The Tax Court of Canada decided that Wayne Scott and other bicycle couriers may deduct $7.20 a day in food and drink. Right on. Oil prices rose to a 4-month high today, up another 97 cents a barrel on speculation that the oil-producing nations are serious about cutting production and therefore cutting into the world's oil glut. The increase in the price in the last week is a little late for many people. They live in that portion of the country known as the oil patch, stretching from the Gulf Coast of Texas up through Oklahoma. ABC's Mike Von Fremd has been there recently, and the sound you hear these days is that of oil pumps closing down.
Dan Wallace says there is still oil in the ground here. He paid $250,000 to dig this well, but says it's time to shut it down.
I can't win. I can do everything right. I can make all my decisions correct, and there's no opportunity to make a profit. Absolutely none.
This is the 26th well Wallace has been forced to shut down in the past year.
Okay, that's it. It's done.
The economics are pretty simple. On average, it costs $13.50 to pump 1 barrel of oil. Even with the rise in price today, a barrel of Oklahoma crude sells for only $12. But after royalties and taxes are paid, the producer receives only $9. That means a loss of $4.50 on each barrel pumped. So instead of drilling new wells, these days oil producers are pulling pipe out of the ground and capping wells.
We're seeing what I'm afraid may be the end. The pipe, the tubing, or the rods, the pumping unit, will just be worth scrap iron prices.
The rhythm of the oil pump has been replaced by the screech of scrap metal shears. Oil producers used to come from around the world to this giant storage lot to purchase used equipment. Now, there are no buyers. When a rig is shut down, it is not just the oil producer who suffers. The loss of jobs ripples throughout the community.
We had as many as 18 employees at one time, and we're down to 2 now. So, yeah, it's scary.
What were once oil boom towns are now mostly ghost towns with abandoned storefronts.
It's sad. I would love to have my son in business with me today, just like I was in business with my father, but there's no future here.
It was a glorious past. Mike Von Fremd, ABC News, Seminole, Oklahoma.
One item of political news, we told you this was coming. In Iowa, Republican Elizabeth Dole announced she is forming a presidential exploratory committee. It allows her to start raising money for a presidential campaign. In Missouri last night, they did execute Roy Roberts. He was the man convicted of murder who tried to get clemency based on the fact that the Pope recently got clemency from the governor of Missouri for another man. When we come back, we'll take a closer look at old crimes and new technology.
This is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. Brought to you by Aflac, insuring over 40 million people worldwide.
Why do I have Aflac insurance on top of my regular health insurance? Because she throws like a boy and dances like an angel. Because we've shared the same heartbeat. And because Aflac helps cover what other insurance doesn't. If I'm sick, Aflac even provides cash to help pay bills. So why do I have Aflac? Because I have her. Aflac supplemental insurance. Without it, no insurance is complete.
Getting those urban cowboys on horses was trying enough. And you throw in some serious chili, we're talking major heartburn. And we were way out there, and this cowboy, he pulls this Zantac 75 out of his saddlebag. I said, what are you, a Zantac salesman? He said, no, I'm a doctor.
The medicine in Zantac 75 is the #1 doctor-prescribed acid reducer. It relieves even your toughest heartburn, controlling acid for up to 12 hours.
Hats off to you, Doc.
Zantac 75 for tough heartburn. Doctors know.
When arthritis pain hurts, you want relief fast. But some pills can cause stomach irritation. Rubs can have odor. Aspercream's different. Rubbing an Aspercream relieves minor arthritis pain. No stomach irritation, no odor. Aspercream. Pain relief without aspirin.
If you can do this, you can make wood beautiful with Minwax. And if you can do this, you can give wood lasting protection. Turning a house into a beautiful home is as easy as turning to Minwax.
All right, kid. Here we go. 10-9. What do you got? What do you got? What? Yeah. All right, come on, come on.
What would you do if someone you loved had a heart attack?
Yeah.
Did you know it's now been proven that the same Bayer aspirin you have in your bag for muscle aches may actually help stop you from dying if you take it during a heart attack?
Downtown. Lucky shot.
Can your pain reliever do that? Talk to your doctor now.
Next time I'll go easier on you.
Bayer. Powerful pain relief and so much more.
We're going to take a closer look tonight at technology and time, and here's what we mean. 22 years ago this week, the Los Angeles boxing promoter Howard Steindler was murdered, 22 years ago. Some of the great boxers, Muhammad Ali, Rocky Marciano, Jack Dempsey, trained in Steindler's Main Street gym in Los Angeles. And for years, there were no convincing clues to who might have murdered Steindler, and the police had other crimes which needed to be pursued as well. Periodically, the police had time to look again at one of their unsolved murders, and just last month, the new technology helped them to match a fingerprint that might lead them to the killer. Taking the time, having the time to look again is somewhat easier for many police departments today. Here's ABC's Judy Muller.
Very special.
When Virginia Lowry, a 56-year-old San Francisco woman, was found murdered in her home 10 years ago, police had only one clue: a single fingerprint on a water heater.
They tried to match his fingerprint with every known associate of this victim and her family and their friends, and they could come up at that time with no match.
They also had no time due to a heavy caseload. But the homicide rate is now half what it was in the late 80s, freeing them up to take a second look at that fingerprint. And new computer technology made that much simpler.
This took a grand total of 5 minutes to search, and it could have taken years going through 4 million prints that are in our system.
The fingerprint pointed to this man. Then police went back to the victim's fingernail clippings, stored in an evidence vault. They discovered someone else's DNA on them, DNA which also pointed to the suspect, who is now under arrest. San Francisco is not alone. Police departments across the country are taking advantage of the lower crime rate to solve old murders.
Homicide, to help you?
In San Diego, a special unit has been formed to deal with so-called cold cases, which have been filed away in the basement.
How many of these old cases have you already solved?
28 out of 185 that we've examined.
One case was especially tough to crack because it came down not to technology, but to old-fashioned detective work.
The murder that took place here at this convenience store 9 years ago was hardly a high-profile case. It was one transient stabbing another with very few leads. And it was one of 167 homicides that year in San Diego.
But last year, there were only 42 homicides, so Detective John Teft had time to reinvestigate that old case. He tracked down several homeless men who had heard someone confess that night 9 years ago.
He said that, that he just stabbed some guy and that he thought he might have killed him and he was looking for his wife.
Detective Teft pored over old hospital and arrest records and eventually located the suspect in Florida. He's now serving time in a California prison for the murder.
And it's kind of rewarding to say, hey, you know what? Nobody forgot about this, and you're now going to go to jail for something you did, and you thought you got away with it.
And others who thought they got away with it may soon hear that knock on the door. San Jose police were out searching a remote field recently, looking for shell casings from a gun that might have been used in a murder.
22 caliber rimfire shell casing.
A murder that took place 20 years ago. Judy Muller, ABC News, San Diego.
On the subject of clues, most people now know that DNA plays a critical role in criminal investigations. A hair follicle, even a cigarette butt, can make the connection between a criminal and a crime. ABC's Ned Potter reports tonight on technology that will take DNA testing to a whole new level.
When police in the O.J. Simpson case found those famous blood samples at the crime scene, they had to send them all the way from California to Maryland for DNA testing. The process took days and left room for Simpson's lawyers to argue that police had switched the samples to frame him.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of the crime of murder.
In the future, such a case might come out very differently. It is now possible for police to go to a crime scene with a DNA lab the size of a briefcase, or even smaller. It can read genetic material, perhaps from blood or saliva that police have found, in less than half an hour.
Any biological sample that you want to identify and determine how much there is can be done with this technique.
Here's how it works. A tiny sample in a test tube is repeatedly heated and cooled inside a miniature testing chamber, essentially a hollowed-out computer chip. That triggers a chemical reaction, multiplying the sample in size so it can be read by electronic detectors. The technology has all sorts of uses. For instance, the military can test for viruses that might infect their troops, or investigators can check out bioterrorism threats to see if they are genuine.
We've shown that we can do it 4 to 5 times faster with this portable instrument than with the commercial system.
The moral and legal questions may still swirl around DNA testing, but the technology is way ahead of them. Ned Potter, ABC News, New York.
Closer look for today. When we come back, disaster at sea. What is happening to the oysters that produce 2/3 of the world's pearls?
Tylenol House Call. Information for healthy living.
Every time you pick up a newspaper or magazine these days, it seems like they're talking about another new prescription drug. The latest is a medicine for arthritis pain called a COX-2 inhibitor.
Oh, a new prescription? No, I'd talk to my doctor.
If you're interested in this new COX-2 for arthritis, here are some questions you may want to ask your doctor. First, how does it compare to other products? This new COX-2 has not been proven to work better than the pain reliever doctors recommend most for everyday arthritis pain, Tylenol. Then ask your doctor about its safety profile. No other type of pain reliever is gentler to your stomach than Tylenol. Finally, check the cost. This new COX-2 can cost over $3 a day, almost $100 a month.
I don't want to take a prescription if I don't need one.
Your doctor has the details. When you hear about a new prescription drug, make sure you get all the facts.
Tylenol House Call is brought to you by Extra Strength Tylenol.
When Diane initially came into the office, her time horizon for investing her money was rather short term. It was right after college. I was going to turn over the money pretty quickly to pay for graduate school. Since then, her objective has changed. I've always had this kind of long-term goal in mind, which is starting my own business. What that means, actually, invest more aggressively because her time horizon had lengthened. She knows herself. She knows her goals. She knows her tolerance for risk. She's learned about the tools that Schwab has to assist her in meeting those goals.
Boogie woogie, Rumblin' Brown, creamy, dreamy, Rumblin' Brown. It's got yogurt blended right in with the creamy taste of butter. You'll try again.
The goodness of yogurt, the creamy taste of butter with half the fat and calories. Must be Rumblin' Brown.
3, 2.
There is a conspiracy spreading across the country. Its members see things no one else can. What they're watching looks like a movie, but it's a movie premiere that can't be seen anywhere else. And they can access thousands of movies a month.
How? They must possess a technology that is not of this earth. Who are these people? Let's get out of here. DirecTV. What are you looking at?
Mortgage interest rates have been slashed to some of their lowest levels ever. The time to refinance is right now. Just call DiTech Funding at 1-800-71-FIX. Today's low 30-year fixed rate is just 6 7/8%, APR 7.133%. There are no points, no deposits, and rates will never go down to zero. So what are you waiting for?
It's smart financing from DiTech Funding.
Refinance now to a low 30-year fixed rate of just 6 7/8% with 0 points. Call 1-800-71-FIX.
In hospital pharmacies, they dispense medicines that work fast. For heartburn, that's 1-minute Maalox.
It goes to work on stomach acid in 1 minute. Pepcid AC could take over 45 minutes.
Hospital pharmacies rely on Maalox. Shouldn't you?
Count on 1-minute Maalox.
On 2020 tonight, the case everyone is talking about. A twisted tale of illicit love.
And a bizarre crime.
Did he really inject his mistress?
With the AIDS virus.
The affair.
The evidence.
The stunning outcome. Diane Sawyer, Sam Donaldson, 2020 tonight.
Coming up next on Channel 2 News, a new proposal to charge Oregon drivers may take a toll on freeway travel, and visit a town where neighbors opened their hearts and wallets to give the community a place to play. I'm Steve Dunn. News of the Northwest is coming up next.
Just a brief review of our top story tonight. The Clinton administration and the Congress both taking efforts today, or making efforts today, to improve protection for air travelers, sort of an air travelers' rights manifesto. Today, a House panel heard some horror stories from passengers about alleged mistreatment by the airlines. Finally, from us this evening, peril for the pearl. One of Japan's most revered industries is actually facing ruin, and the Asian financial crisis is not to blame. ABC's Mark Litke tonight on the something terrible that is happening to the oysters that produce the world's most coveted cultured pearls.
For a century, these gems of the sea have been virtually synonymous with Japan. Japan, after all, perfected the art. Oysters, first implanted with tiny pieces of shell, then cultivated in shallow coastal seabeds, yielding harvests of impeccable beauty, 2/3 of the world's cultured pearls. But all this is now in jeopardy. In the waters off southwestern Japan, up to 80% of this year's oyster crop has died off, the third consecutive year of catastrophic losses. Here in Uwa Bay, the pearl farmers are in a state of shock. No one here, not the farmers, not the scientists, no one knows what's causing the epidemic. Some say it's a virus, others believe it's pollution, or that oysters have been weakened by years of excessive farming. But whatever it is, production of pearls this year will be down 90%. Making matters worse, the oysters that do survive are turning out smaller, lower quality pearls. Farmers say they won't survive if this lasts another season.
We are losing everything we love and losing something very beautiful too.
Ironically, the global economic crisis is giving the industry some breathing room. Inventories remain high because sales are down, a fact that's also keeping prices in check. But dealers are starting to feel the pinch.
We are having a more difficult time finding better pearls every year.
That means prices will soar if the problem is not solved soon. And no one knows it better than the pearl farmers, already measuring this year's crop by the piles of dead oysters along their shores. Mark Litke, ABC News, Uwajima, Japan.
That is our report on World News Tonight. I'm Peter Jennings. We hope you have a nice evening and that we'll see you tomorrow. Good night.
Tomorrow, what would your employer do to keep you? The sizzling job market. Companies doing almost anything to make people stay. Watch ABC's World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. This has been a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source.